Here we are.
In another episode
of the Simple Success Podcast.
And
This is financial life coaching from a happiness perspective.
I know what I should do here.
where?
Right here. Right here in my life.
Oh, there. Okay, what?
Change you. You change everything.
Change yourself in a good way?
If and you'll just grease the old palm, then sure.
You mean bribe you to like this thing we do?
Let's just say to make certain that you know my motivation.
Which is to do the right thing, I hope.
If I'm paid to do the right thing, then I certainly will do it.
Ah, I think I see where this is going. And I'm not sure I like that, but we'll see.
You must have something special lined up for today.
I always have something special, DT. But because you mentioned it, I hope that today you have double takeaways.
You know me, John. Knowledge is power. So what wisdom are we imparting today?
Well, we're still on a journey of knowledge and action because those are some of the basic ingredients of growth in anything. Today, we're going to look at motivation as a proxy for individual performance.
Self-discipline enables one to keep the mind fixed on that which is wanted and
Wow, John. Motivation and pay are two sides of the same coin. That's enough to get people's attention to this podcast episode.
That's right, DT. When you hear the word motivation, what comes to your mind first? What's your definition of motivation?
I define motivation as why I do what I do.
Well, yeah. Why we do what we do is just fascinating.
In short, it is the big why. It is a reason for acting in a particular way. And motivation can help in goal setting.
That is an apt definition, DT. The title of today's podcast is Motivation Comes from Pay. And the thing to watch for here is where people's money comes from.
I know what you mean. We may be working the same job, but we are not all motivated in the same way.
Right. So, for instance, just today, I was searching for alternatives to a piece of software we use.
And
lo and behold, right near the top of the search results
was what?
Was a very clever piece of marketing designed to look like an objective blog.
How do you know that?
I know that because it purported to answer my question perfectly to the letter.
Sounds fine so far.
As intended, but the answer listed 5 great alternatives, the number 1 being...
Don't say it. The number 1.
Yes, the number 1 solution was created by the people writing the objective blog.
The so-called objective blog, you mean?
Yeah, that one. And as we found out in an earlier podcast, knowing and doing are two different things. When we know what motivates us, then we at least understand our own actions.
If I continue doing what I am doing, I will continue getting the rewards I'm getting.
You got that right, DT. In life, we get what we bargain for instead of just what we deserve. Even if you don't think you have bargained for something, be it a reward or pay
or anything else,
right, or anything else, you really have bargained for it. It's not a matter of either or.
If I hear you correctly, you are implying that I am complicit in the financial rewards I get, whether I like it or not.
Yep. This is why you take such matters concerning motivation and pay into your own hands.
If I know what motivates me, I will be in a better position to do what needs to be done, to get what's really due to me.
And I'll ask you more about that later. For now, it's enough to know that motivation, like happiness, is an inside job. There could be external rewards, but at the core, it has its roots in a person's heart.
Do you need the action to happen first?
Elaborate, please.
Can you put your attitude right before the bank recognizes it?
Oh, yeah, you can. And you can do that by visualizing that you already have the reward. The subconscious mind consists of a field of consciousness in which every impulsive thought that reaches the objective mind through any of the 5 senses is classified and recorded, and from which thoughts may be recalled as letters may be taken from a filing cabinet.
You said that I cannot entirely control my subconscious mind, but I can voluntarily hand over to it any plan, desire, or purpose which I wish transformed into concrete form.
Works for me.
But sometimes people get abstract rewards. Can that be looked at as a negative outcome, which could do a number on a person's motivation?
Well, people always do what gives them the most reward. And often that's pay, but it's not always that. It's definitely something we value, like maybe time off or special recognition. It's a material reward, and it might not be money.
If a reward isn't necessarily monetary, can a break be a form of a reward?
Maybe. Where are you going with this?
Daniel knows exactly where I'm going. At this point, we need...
Break number 1.
Hello, everyone. This is John with the Simple Success Podcast, financial life coaching from a happiness perspective. Because we know you want to show us some serious love in return for the tremendous benefits you get from us. Please head over to the support link in our written show notes. That's the words on your podcast player. There, you can choose from a $9.99 per month doing level of support, a $4.99 knowing level, or a basic intro level of just 99 cents per month. Great place to start, whichever you choose. Thank you so much for helping us do this for you. And to leave us a voice message, which just might see the light of day in a future podcast, go to those same written show notes. You'll go to a site where you can leave a video, audio, or text-only message, depending on how you feel at the moment. You can also send us an audio file attached to an email if you use just more than your phone for stuff. I won't repeat those links because weird. And anyway, show notes. It's all in there, and it's all easy.
John, continue from where you left off. You were saying that people always do what gives them the most reward. You also said that often that's pay, but it's not always that.
Right. Pay is an example of baseline rewards. It is different things to different people. Two people may be doing the exact same job but have different income goals. One may derive a reward from the wages they're paid, and the other person may get their reward from the status they feel the job gives them.
You're saying that it's different strokes for different folks, right? From the example you've given, I've concluded there's no right or wrong way to pay. To paraphrase that popular saying, pay is in the eyes of the beholder.
Oh, well, that's a great way to look at it. Many times, the real issue is that we have a generalized mentality and think that everyone is doing the same thing for the same reason.
Yeah, and?
And while it may look like this is the case, often it's not.
Can you please talk a little bit about an extrinsic reward?
I did already.
Okay, but maybe it needs a little context.
Okay, a little context then. It's a reward that you personally like, even if it isn't extra money. But it is tangible, and it usually has a value, such as a salary hike, a bonus, an award, or other public recognition.
Most people like tangible and visible rewards. So where does intrinsic motivation come in?
It's a big part of the whole goal. This is something you self-generate the same way we do positive attitudes, as a way of feeling good. It can be spiritual, logical, any kind of thingable, just so you've mastered making yourself feel good without anything external happening.
And feeling good, however we get there, is a pretty important thing to have going on.
Yes, and it's about social conditioning. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that you cannot do much with intrinsic motivation, like, say, paying your bills.
Sounds like manifesting to me.
It's attitude motivation, however you want to identify it.
But the joy that comes with the accomplishment can motivate me to do or be better, thereby making my pay feel better to me.
Motivation comes from getting paid, and that payment takes different forms and varies from one person to the other.
Whether the rewards are tangible or intangible, for me, the $64,000 question is, how long should I keep doing something if I'm not getting paid?
Well, that depends on what you're following. If it's compelling enough, you can inculcate the discipline of patience and persistence to keep you going. Even that Elon Musk person, whom no one has ever heard of, says that when something is worth doing, it doesn't matter if the odds are against you.
Or, I may change what I'm following so that my doing is consistent.
Yeah, that's a good point, Daniel. What we are following can pinpoint our real motivation. Oftentimes, if someone follows what is motivating us, they can get to the bottom of the big why, which we talked about before.
Quote, the starting point of all achievement is desire. Keep this constantly in mind. Weak desire brings weak results, just as a small fire makes a small amount of heat.
Napoleon Hill quote detected.
I'm getting pretty good at that, aren't I?
You are, and that means
That our listeners are getting better at it too.
because
Because it's critical to see how simple this can be.
how simple is that?
Simple enough that we can always relax for a second and really internalize this lesson.
Looking through the policy manual. And what can happen while we're doing that?
Break number 2.
Well, that sounds good. We know a lot about you already because we know ourselves. For example, we know that you know how to listen to our podcast. We also know that you probably know how to subscribe. So as soon as you're done with that, tell us your story. We have ways you can contact us. It involves a special link where you can leave us a message. We may have an email address for you as well in the future, and we'll let you know if that happens. The reason for subscribing? I thought you'd never ask. When you subscribe, you automatically download all future episodes of that podcast. It just happens in your player without you having to go search again. How cool is that? This means better rankings for the podcast, more attention from advertisers, and more money. And this means more and better stuff for you. So your motivation is simple and easy. Subscribe today, whatever app and from whatever place you like. And don't just try to subscribe. There is no try. There is only do. We're changing the way we look at things, and remember, that's good. Eso es buenísimo. Also remember, this is financial life coaching from a happiness perspective. Coaching happiness. Our call to action is right in the show notes. Find it, and you win too.
John, we're in that part of the podcast where you tie in all that we've been talking about to investing. As you know, I want to put all that I've learned into practice.
You know that's right up my alley. I'm going to make it worth your while.
I'm all ears, like an alert German shepherd.
Ears on, ears up. Just so we're both reading from the same script. What have you learned thus far?
That I should follow what motivates me. If I do that, one way or the other, I will get paid.
If you know your definite purpose in life, that will happen. It sort of reminds me of Deep Throat's advice to Woodward and Bernstein, the reporters uncovering the Watergate scandal. The advice was follow the money. Most times, if you follow the money, you will find the real motivation, whether it is good or evil.
You're saying that money is one of our sources of motivation?
Yep, it's sometimes said that money talks. Think and Grow Rich tells us it can't talk, but it can, quote unquote, hear when you call it to come. And usually in the long run, we'll find out what the real motivation was for getting the money.
How does repeating help here?
If you keep on doing what you are doing, you will hit a point where you will have motivation because of that repeated cycle. It's true for all of us.
Is that like muscle memory? Like when an athlete keeps doing a regimen, after a certain time the muscle develops some type of memory?
They are a lot alike. This is called mind force technique. You force or condition the mind to be motivated.
That mind force technique might be worth trying.
Many people equate personal growth and career advancement with monetary incentives. But we can condition our minds to be motivated by other things apart from financial incentives.
Can I change my attitude and think further and deeper than this?
You can. Just start the process of changing your source of motivation and joy. Look for the growth that's there, apart from,
Or even in addition to,
yes, even in addition to the financial aspects. When you change your attitude about what motivates you, you will change you, just like I said before.
do you have an example of someone who did that? I mean, it's one thing throwing these think and grow rich quotes around, but it's also great to have an example of a person IRL, in real life. Like achievable goals.
Sure. How about this one? Colonel Harlan Sanders, if you recognize that name, was fired from a variety of jobs throughout his career before he first started cooking chicken in his roadside Shell service station in 1930. That's when he was 40 years old already, and during the Great Depression. His gas station didn't have a restaurant, so he served his diners in his attached personal living quarters.
Then he perfected it, along with getting a few appetites.
Yep. Over the next 10 years, Colonel Sanders perfected his secret recipe and pressure fryer cooking method for his famous fried chicken and moved on to bigger locations. However,
I knew there was a however.
which we must all overcome from time to time. However, he didn't plan on the interstate coming through and disrupting stuff, which is why we all have to be able to flex sometimes. When you can, it works. When you can't, like Kodak, there might be a problem or two.
And the rest is history. I get it. That goes back to patience and perseverance. Without patience and perseverance, it's easy to throw in the towel.
True. So just look beyond what most people think investing is,
And you'll find what most people really want,
which is,
which is a way to have the world they want.
and to have it in a way which does not have any negative impact on anyone else.
Isn't that the mark of an educated person?
It is, but we'll go there another day.
Meantime,
You know
practice.
that, and what else?
Again?
It's kind of the point, DT.
Okay, repetition.
Until
Until never, or until you've gotten good, like Vina's going to say here in a second.
Which is how you've all gotten good.
Gracias por escuchar.
a la prochaine.
Will you please read, think, and grow rich?
This podcast and our other podcast are productions of Little Red Hen Industries. The supporting cast who helps me bake the bread includes
Techno King, John C. Brandy, Fact Checker, Abraham Lincoln, French Consultant, Virginia Mitchell, Media Expert, Favor, Abasi E.K., Psychologist, William James, Rabbit Hole Advisor, Dr. Mark Perrott, Sound Designer, Goodly Amo, Marconi, Spanish Consultant, Cameron J.K. Brandy, Videographer, Alfred Hitchcock, Audio Props, Les Paul, Inspiration, Napoleon Hill and Earl Nightingale.
We also have websites, and you can subscribe to both podcasts and get ebooks and other great stuff. You can send us a video, audio, or text message, but of course, you'll have to head to the show notes, either on your phone or on the web, to actually get links and stuff. And those clickable links are in the show notes.
And before we forget, the artificial intelligence or AI voices you hear in our work come from the online tone generator, linked in the show notes.
Finally, you can find us on Podmatch and Listen Notes, where we consider guests and guesting on other pods.
And really finally, the music for our pods comes from Cute by Ben Sound and from Piano Background by Nick Simon Adams. The sound effects credits go to Jackson Academy Ashmore, Canoe CG, Dr. Jekyll, Joe Payne, Everything Sounds, MK Play More Stories, ERH, and Just Kidding. Yes, that's his name. All on freesound.org.
Paul.